Do you ever feel as if reality is happening one step away from where you stand? As if there is a layer you should be seeing but somehow can't touch? That subtle tension in your chest, that quiet suspicion that something essential is hidden just beyond the edge of your awareness when it's not imagination. It's the first signal. The mind calls it confusion, but the soul calls it a remembering. And if you're listening carefully, you can feel it. The sense that you've been walking through a world that shows only the surface of what truly is. Imagine this. Somewhere inside you lies a sealed scroll, an ancient one, older than your beliefs and far older than your fears. You've never opened it, yet you feel its weight. You don't know its language, yet it whispers. It's the feeling that follows you in silent moments, the strange pull toward knowledge you can't name. You don't see the script, but you sense its presence like a pulse under the skin. A hidden text waiting for the exact moment when your consciousness becomes mature enough to read it. And whether you admit it or not, you've always known this scroll exists. Here is the paradox most people never realize. The hidden secret of Hermetic wisdom was never truly hidden. It was simply placed where only the attentive could find it. Not in temples, not in books, but in perception itself. The forbidden knowledge you feel calling you is not outside you. It is the architecture of your mind learning to see again. The scroll is sealed not to keep you out, but to prevent you from opening it before you're ready to understand its weight. What you call confusion is initiation. What you call emptiness is preparation. And what feels like a missing piece is the first truth knocking at the door. But here's the question you cannot escape. If the secret was never truly concealed, why do so few people ever awaken to it? Why do so many walk through life as if trapped behind a fog, unable to perceive the deeper pattern pulsing beneath all things? If the scroll is within all of us, why are only a handful capable of hearing its whisper? The answer is the beginning of this journey, and it will reshape the way you see everything you thought was real. You felt it for years, that quiet mismatch between what the world shows you and what your intuition insists is true. It's the sense that the visible layer of life is only a thin membrane stretched over something vast, intelligent, and deliberate. You wake up, you move through routines, you speak, you work, you scroll, and yet, beneath all of that, something inside you watches with a kind of silent disbelief, whispering, "This cannot be everything." That whisper is not doubt. It is recognition. It is the mind brushing against the edges of a reality it has forgotten how to read. Every time you sense that something more, you are not imagining it. You are remembering the deeper architecture that your consciousness once understood instinctively. But modern life conditions you to doubt your own perception. It numbs your intuitive senses with noise, speed, digital stimulation, and a constant stream of distractions designed to keep you blind to the symbolic layer of life. When you feel misaligned, when you feel out of rhythm with reality, it is not a personal failure. It is the natural tension between your deeper intelligence and a world built to ignore it. This is why Hermetic knowledge feels forbidden. Not because someone hid it behind locked doors, but because the world you live in trains you not to look for it. It teaches you to trust what is loud and to ignore what is quiet, to follow the obvious and dismiss the subtle, to believe only what can be measured and therefore to distrust your own inner knowing. The real secret is not hidden, it is overlooked. And the reason you feel like you're missing something is because you were never meant to navigate life using only the surface of your awareness. Think of the sealed scroll again. It is not sealed by force. It is sealed by your inattention. The moment you begin to notice patterns, truly notice them, the seal weakens. The moment you question the rhythm of your own thoughts instead of obeying them, the seal cracks. The moment you observe your life not as random events but as symbolic reflections of your inner state, the scroll begins to open. Most people never experience this because they never learn to pause long enough to question the story they've been handed. They mistake repetition for truth. They call noise clarity and silence emptiness, but you are not most people, and you know it. You feel this tension because your perception is waking up. The misalignment you experience, the sense of living slightly off axis from yourself, is actually the first stage of initiation. It is the phase where the old operating system of your mind starts to break down. You begin to notice the cracks in the illusion, the patterns behind coincidences, the strange intelligence behind random events. You begin to sense meaning where you once saw nothing. And this shift doesn't happen because someone teaches you a secret. It happens because you stop betraying what you already know. This is why Hermetic wisdom was encoded in principles, not commandments. Principles cannot be hidden. They are observable everywhere, in nature, in behavior, in emotion, in cycles, in thought. The law of correspondence, the law of vibration, the law of mentalism. These are not abstract ideas. They are mechanisms you interact with every moment of every day, whether you recognize them or not. The scroll inside you is simply the awareness of these laws waking up, remembering itself, reactivating its original clarity. You feel misaligned because you've been living unaware of how these laws shape you. You've been reacting instead of observing, absorbing instead of discerning, surviving instead of perceiving. And so the hidden truth feels distant, like a word you almost remember, but cannot quite pronounce. But understand this. The secret does not become visible because someone reveals it to you. It becomes visible because you choose to look differently. You begin to see the invisible threads that connect experiences, emotions, synchronicities, and inner states. You begin to see reality not as a sequence of events, but as a symbolic language addressed directly to your consciousness. And here is the part most people never discover. Once you begin to perceive these subtle layers, reality becomes readable. Patterns stop being coincidences. Emotional cycles stop being just how you are. Repeated challenges stop feeling like punishment and start looking like communication. Life becomes a message, and you become the one capable of decoding it. But this raises a deeper question, one that marks the true threshold of initiation. If this knowledge is everywhere, in your emotions, in your relationships, in your failures, in your desires, in your daily patterns, why do so many remain blind to it? Why do so many wander through life unable to perceive the architecture you are beginning to sense? The answer is not simple. It touches the heart of Hermetic wisdom and the core of your own awakening. And once you understand it, the scroll inside you will begin to unseal itself. Then listen closely, because what follows is not theory, but the architecture beneath your perception. You feel misaligned because you are standing on the surface of a structure built on multiple layers. What you call reality is only the upper shell of a much deeper framework, a network of laws, correspondences, and vibrational patterns that shape every experience you have. Most people live entirely in that surface layer. They believe what they see, they react to what they feel, and they never question the machinery beneath the appearance. But you feel the friction of the unseen. You sense that the movement of your life comes from somewhere deeper than the events you experience. That suspicion is correct. Hermeticism always taught that there is an understructure, a hidden architecture, and it begins with a single principle. The mind is the first mover. Not your thoughts, not your emotions, but mind as the fabric of existence itself. Everything you experience is downstream from that fabric. Everything you call external is a projection of the invisible laws shaping the internal. This is why you feel something is missing. You are living in the echo rather than the source. Mentalism is not about positive thinking. It is not about forcing the world to obey your desires. It is a recognition that the world you experience is built from the inside out, and in ways far more subtle than you were ever taught to see. The internal creates the vibrational pattern. The vibrational pattern creates the field. The field attracts the experiences that correspond to its frequency, and your consciousness interprets that sequence as my life. Most people experience this chain backwards. They see the events and assume the events shape their emotions. They feel the emotions and assume the emotions shape their thoughts. They never trace the chain back to the primary layer, the one that is shaping everything. You are beginning to sense that primary layer. That's why your life feels slightly out of sync, because the surface no longer satisfies your deeper perception. You want to see the machinery. You want to read the pattern. Look closer. The sense of misalignment you feel is actually a misalignment between the vibrational layer beneath your life and the perception you're using to interpret it. It's as if your inner architecture is broadcasting on one frequency, while your conscious mind is trying to interpret on another. And whenever those frequencies don't match, you feel disconnected. You feel off. You feel like something is there, but just out of reach. This is the real meaning behind the Hermetic idea that the universe is mental. It's not metaphor, it's literal structure. Your inner world is not a reaction to the outer world. It is the blueprint that the outer world follows. And when your blueprint goes unconscious, your life becomes a series of events you cannot explain. patterns you cannot break, emotions you cannot trace, cycles you cannot understand. You don't see the architecture, you only see the consequences. But once you begin to look, the entire structure becomes readable. You begin to notice correspondences. You begin to see how a thought you dismissed becomes an emotion 2 days later, how an emotion you suppressed becomes a pattern 2 weeks later, how a pattern you ignore becomes destiny 2 years later. You begin to see how relationships mirror inner conflicts, how synchronicities mirror inner desires, how obstacles mirror inner resistances. You begin to see that nothing is random, only deeply symbolic. And that symbolic language is the second layer of the architecture, the one most people never learn to read. This is what Hermetic masters meant when they said reality is built in strata. There is the visible layer, the one your senses observe. There is the vibrational layer, the one your emotions reveal. And there is the mental layer, the one that determines everything. You feel there's something missing because you sense these layers moving, even if you cannot yet see them clearly. But here is the part that most seekers never understand. If reality is layered, then your perception must become layered. You cannot read a three-dimensional world using a one-dimensional mind. You must learn to see through symbols, patterns, rhythms, and reflections. You must learn to observe not only what happens, but what echoes beneath it. And the moment you do, the sealed scroll inside you begins to open. The modern world taught you that reality is flat. Hermeticism teaches you that reality is dimensional, and the discomfort you've been feeling is your consciousness remembering its depth. But if the universe is built in layers, how do you actually learn to read them? What is the first key? What is the mechanism that reveals the invisible architecture? Understood. From now on, I will always state clearly which block we are in before delivering the text. Most people imagine hidden knowledge as something locked away in ancient temples, buried in forbidden manuscripts, or guarded by secret initiates behind heavy stone doors. But Hermetic wisdom was never concealed in that way. The real secret, the one you have been sensing all your life, is that the greatest truths were left in plain sight, scattered through the fabric of everyday experience, not to hide them from the unworthy, but to protect them from the unconscious. Truth can only be seen by a mind capable of perceiving it. In this sense, the world is the temple, and perception is the key. Think of the sealed scroll again. It was never placed in darkness, it was placed in front of you. Its seal does not prevent learning, it prevents distortion, and the seal opens precisely at the moment your consciousness becomes capable of reading what was always there. This is why the Hermetic masters encoded their teachings not in cryptic sentences, but in laws, principles that operate openly in the rhythm of nature, in the cycles of emotion, in the geometry of relationships, in the rise and fall of your internal states. Here is a truth that shocks most seekers. Hermetic knowledge is not hidden. Humans are simply untrained to perceive it. The modern world has conditioned you to look for meaning in noise rather than in silence, in events rather than in patterns, in outcomes rather than in origins. You were taught to value the visible and dismiss the subtle, and so the symbolic language of reality became invisible not because it disappeared, but because your attention was pushed elsewhere. Look at your life, the repetitions, the synchronicities, the emotional loops that return every few months, the people who appear as if mirroring specific internal struggles. These are not coincidences, they are correspondences. They are reflections of the deeper architecture you are only now beginning to sense. Every pattern you ignore becomes a message you fail to read. Every emotional cycle you dismiss becomes a law you have not yet recognized. The world is not random. It is responsive. It is structured. It is speaking. But most people never learn its language. This is the real meaning of the forbidden secret. Not that someone hid it, but that humanity lost the ability to see symbolically. When perception becomes flat, reality becomes silent. When perception becomes deep, reality begins to speak. And right now, your perception is shifting. You're starting to notice the faint correspondence between your inner world and the events unfolding around you. You're starting to feel the subtle intelligence moving beneath circumstances that once seemed meaningless. You're beginning to recognize that what repeats in your life is not punishment. It is instruction. This recognition is the moment when the scroll inside you warms, the seal loosens, the ink begins to glow, and the truth you once suspected becomes undeniable. Reality is not withholding anything from you. You were simply not yet calibrated to see it. But here's the real turning point. The question most seekers never ask, the one that marks the crossing from curiosity into initiation. If the secret has always been open, why does it feel like you were never meant to know it? The answer is the threshold that shifts everything. The moment you begin to sense the hidden layers of reality, something fundamental changes in the way you perceive your own experiences. It is as if the surface of life becomes translucent, revealing faint outlines of a deeper mechanism beneath it. You start noticing that emotions have rhythms, that events have echoes, that coincidences are not coincidences, and that life seems to respond not to your actions but to your inner state. This is where the Hermetic principle of correspondence begins its work. As within, so without. Simple words, but the structure behind them is immense. Most people read this phrase like poetry. You are about to read it like architecture. Correspondence is not a metaphor. It is a law. It means that everything happening in your external world is a mirror of an internal pattern, not a reflection of your thoughts, but a reflection of your vibration. And vibration is not emotion. It is the frequency that emotion reveals. Your emotional landscape is a language, and it is telling you how your inner world is shaping your experience of the outer one. This is why you feel misaligned. Your mind interprets the world at one level, but your vibration interacts with it at another. When these layers fall out of sync, life feels chaotic, confusing, unresponsive, or strangely distant, as if you're living one step sideways from your own timeline. But when they begin to align even for a moment, the world responds with a clarity that feels almost supernatural. Synchronicities appear, opportunities unfold, patterns break. The scroll inside you starts to open because you are finally reading the world with the correct eyes. To understand the hidden architecture, you must understand vibration, not as a spiritual abstraction, but as the underlying code of reality. Everything vibrates. Thoughts, emotions, intentions, memories, desires. Every vibration produces a field, and every field attracts experiences that match its signature. This is not manifestation talk. This is physics of consciousness. The universe does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you are, and what you are is the sum of your vibrational patterns, the rhythms that pulse beneath your awareness. The Hermetic masters encoded this truth in the principle of vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. When you feel stuck in life, you are not actually stuck. Your vibration is simply repeating a pattern. When your relationships loop through the same conflicts, your vibration is repeating a pattern. When your opportunities collapse at the same stage, your vibration is repeating a pattern. The world is not punishing you. It is reflecting you with mathematical precision. This is the first moment when the symbolic layer becomes visible, when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this showing me about my vibration?" That single shift is the beginning of decoding reality, and once you make it, the architecture behind your life begins to reveal itself in unmistakable ways. Think of the sealed scroll again. The seal is not broken by force. It dissolves when your perception reaches the frequency of the truth inside it. And the way you raise perception is by noticing patterns. Patterns are the fingerprints of the laws. Every cycle, every repetition, every echo is the universe speaking to you in the language of vibration. But there is a reason why so few people can read this language. It requires something the modern world trains you to avoid: stillness, silence, internal observation, the ability to watch your own mind without obeying it. Without this stillness, correspondence remains invisible. Without silence, vibration remains inaudible. Without awareness, patterns remain unreadable. And the sealed scroll remains closed not because you are unworthy, but because you are too busy to notice it glowing. Here is the real initiation. When you begin to see that the laws are not hidden at all, you simply have to tune yourself to their rhythm. And once you do, the relationship between your inner world and your outer life becomes impossible to ignore. But this raises a crucial question, one that only those ready for the deeper path ever confront. If these laws are operating constantly, shaping every layer of your reality, why do they feel so difficult to influence? Why does life seem to resist your attempts to change even when you understand the pattern? The answer is the doorway to the next chamber of the scroll. There comes a moment in every seeker's path when the world stops feeling chaotic and starts feeling intentional. Patterns repeat too precisely. Emotional cycles return too rhythmically. The same challenges appear with surgical accuracy, as if orchestrated by something that knows you better than you know yourself. At first, this feels mystical, almost magical, until you realize the truth is far more unsettling. The architecture of your life is responding to your unconscious, not your conscious intentions. This is the part of the journey where many become stuck. They understand the laws, they understand vibration, they understand correspondence, they understand the idea that as within, so without, and yet nothing changes. Their patterns persist, their circumstances loop, their relationships replay the same wounds, their inner states collapse into the same emotional signatures, and the question rises like a stone in the mind: if I understand the laws, why can't I change the outcome? This is where the conflict sharpens. This is where the invisible enemy appears. This is where the sealed scroll tests your readiness to truly open it. The resistance you feel in life, the repetition, the emotional weight, the loops you can't escape, is not caused by the world. It is caused by the parts of you that still operate below awareness. The unconscious is the true architect of your vibration. Most of your emotional rhythms were shaped long before you learned to observe them. Most of your internal patterns were formed before you had the language to understand them. And so the world mirrors not what you consciously choose, but what you unconsciously carry. This is the predator. The Hermetic texts hide in symbolic language, the unseen conditioning that feeds on your psychic energy. Not an entity, a mechanism, a self-reinforcing pattern of perception that keeps you trapped in the same frequency. No matter how many insights you gain, you can intellectually understand every Hermetic law. But if the unconscious remains unobserved, your vibration stays unchanged. And when your vibration doesn't shift, your reality doesn't shift. The architecture obeys the deeper layer, not the superficial one. Think of how many times you've tried to change. New habits, new relationships, new routines, new intentions, new affirmations, new visions for your life. And yet, slowly, quietly, the old patterns pulled you back, not because you failed, but because your unconscious was still broadcasting the older frequency. The world was simply responding with mathematical precision. This is the cost of ignoring the hidden layers. The unconscious becomes the author of your fate, not out of malice, out of momentum. When Hermetic masters spoke of the uninitiated being ruled by forces they do not understand, they were not talking about demons, spirits, or cosmic punishments. They were talking about this exact mechanism, the inertia of unexamined vibration, the emotional momentum that shapes your reality long before you can name it, the patterns you keep reliving because the psyche prefers the familiar over the unknown, even when the familiar hurts. This is why your life feels misaligned. This is why you feel as if you are walking one step behind your own potential. This is why something in you senses a truth you cannot fully embody yet. You are not out of alignment with the universe. You are out of alignment with yourself. And here is the part that marks the true turning point. Your unconscious resists transformation because transformation threatens its stability. Every cycle you break destabilizes the old identity. Every pattern you dissolve dismantles a layer of the self you once believed was you. Every vibrational shift requires psychological death, the collapse of the familiar frequency. And the unconscious will fight to preserve what it knows. This is the real conflict of the seeker. The conscious wants change. The unconscious wants safety. And reality listens to the unconscious. It is not that your power is absent. It is that your power is divided. One part of you calls for expansion while another clings to repetition. One part senses the scroll glowing while another fears what will happen if the seal breaks. You feel the pull of something greater, and yet something holds you in place. This tension is not failure, it is the threshold. It is the moment the scroll tests whether you are ready to step beyond the familiar version of yourself. But there is a way through this conflict, a key Hermetic masters guarded not to hide it, but to protect its integrity. It is a tool that shifts vibration without force, breaks patterns without violence, and dissolves unconscious momentum with clarity instead of struggle. And this key, hidden in plain sight, is the one thing almost no one practices correctly. There is a moment in every initiation when the seeker stops looking for complicated answers and begins searching for the mechanism behind the mechanism, the principle behind the pattern, the force behind the vibration. This is the turning point you're reaching now. The conflict inside you is no longer between you and the world, but between two layers of yourself. The conscious layer that seeks expansion, and the unconscious layer that clings to its old frequency. You don't need more knowledge. You need a key, one that shifts the entire architecture from within. Hermetic masters protected this key not because it was too powerful, but because it was too simple. The untrained mind discards what is simple. The unconscious fears what is simple. But simplicity is the signature of the laws. The universe is not complex. Perception is. And the key you are about to uncover is the one mechanism that dissolves the old vibration without needing to fight it. Here it is. The ability to observe a pattern without reacting to it. That is the true Hermetic tool. That is the hidden key. Not forcing, not affirming, not resisting, not rewriting. Just observing, with precision and stillness. This seems almost insignificant. It feels too small to matter. But in Hermetic architecture, this single gesture is seismic. Observation breaks identification. Identification is what fuels the unconscious. And the unconscious is what shapes vibration. When you observe without reacting, you remove the energy source that keeps the old frequency alive. You stop feeding the pattern. You interrupt the momentum. You detach awareness from the machinery that once operated without your permission. This is why the scroll in you has been sealed all this time. Because the moment you learn to observe without reacting, you break the spell. You exit the loop. You transcend the old frequency and step into a higher one. And from that new vibration, reality begins to rearrange itself. Not slowly, not symbolically, but immediately. Think about how your life has operated until now. You experience a trigger, and the body reacts. You feel an emotion, and the mind interprets it. You face a pattern, and the unconscious pulls you into the familiar response. This chain is mechanical, automatic, predictable. The world mirrors it perfectly. But when you insert observation into the chain, you disrupt the entire mechanism. The unconscious cannot run the program without your involvement. The vibration begins to shift because you stop energizing the old pattern. This is the forbidden Hermetic secret. Vibration changes through awareness, not force. Force strengthens the pattern. Avoidance reinforces the pattern. Denial feeds the pattern, but observation dissolves it. This is why silence terrifies people. Silence forces them to observe. This is why stillness feels uncomfortable. Stillness exposes the pattern. This is why the world distracts you constantly. Distraction keeps the scroll closed. Your power is not in reaction. Your power is in the space before reaction. And the more you expand that space, the more authority you gain over your own vibrational field. This is how you begin to read the sealed scroll. Not by decoding symbols, but by observing the machinery of your own inner world with clarity so sharp it disrupts the unconscious. In practical terms, this is the tool. When a pattern repeats, do not fight it. When an emotion rises, do not drown in it. When the old self tries to pull you back, do not resist. Just watch, notice, witness, hold awareness like a flame that refuses to flicker. The unconscious cannot survive under direct observation. It dissolves because its power comes from operating in darkness. This is why noticing is the most underestimated form of spiritual alchemy. It breaks the chain at the root. Every moment of pure observation is a small death of the old vibration, and every small death is a slice through the seal of the scroll. But there is a second layer to this key, one even more subtle, the ability to observe not just your emotions, but the pattern underneath them. Most people stop at the emotion. The initiated mind goes deeper. What is the rhythm? What repeats? What is being mirrored externally? What is the energetic flavor of the moment? When you observe this layer, you step fully into Hermetic vision. You begin to see your life not as chaos, but as encoded communication. You now have the key, but a key alone is not enough. To open the scroll, you must perform the gesture, the ritual that activates it. The Hermetic tool must be practiced, not just understood. And that practice is the beginning of transformation on the deepest layer. The question now is, how do you apply this key in your daily life? How do you make observation a form of alchemy, a ritual that dissolves the old frequency and invokes a new one? For that, we enter the next chamber. There is a moment in every inner journey when knowledge stops being something you understand and becomes something you do. You've crossed the threshold of insight, the recognition of patterns, the reading of subtle layers, the understanding that reality mirrors vibration. But insight alone cannot open the sealed scroll. The scroll only opens when awareness becomes action, when perception becomes ritual, when understanding becomes embodiment. This is where most seekers fail. They wait for transformation to happen to them, instead of realizing that transformation is activated through them. The Hermetic masters taught that nothing in the universe moves until the inner world moves, not through force, not through desire, but through presence. And presence is cultivated through a ritual that appears simple on the surface, but alters your frequency at the deepest level. Here is the practice. Observe the pattern in real time, without trying to change it. Not later, not in reflection, not in hindsight, but in the moment it arises. When anger erupts, notice the first spark. When anxiety flickers, notice the first contraction. When an old thought returns, notice the first whisper. When a familiar situation unfolds, notice the first echo. This moment, the first moment, is where the architecture shifts. You are not trying to stop the emotion, nor escape it, nor replace it with a positive thought. You are performing the Hermetic gesture, awareness without interference. This is the alchemical flame that melts the unconscious pattern. This is not meditation. This is not therapy. This is not introspection. This is initiation. The art of holding awareness at the exact point where the old vibration tries to reclaim you. This is why it feels difficult. You are not merely observing an emotion. You are interrupting a lifetime of momentum. You are placing consciousness directly in the path of an ancient current. The unconscious will resist. Your body will tighten. Your mind will try to distract you. Your attention will want to collapse into the familiar reaction. But the moment you hold the awareness steady, even for a few seconds, something begins to crack inside the mechanism. You feel it as a subtle shift, a slight spaciousness around the experience, a moment where you realize, I am noticing this instead of becoming this. That space is the doorway. That space is the scroll unsealing. That space is the first taste of freedom from vibrational inertia. This is the hidden reason Hermetic texts have always emphasized the principle of rhythm. Emotion rises, emotion falls, thoughts come, thoughts fade, circumstances tighten, circumstances release. Life moves in cycles, and consciousness observes the cycles. When you observe the wave without being swallowed by it, the wave loses its authority over you. It cannot pull you back into the old frequency, because you're no longer unconsciously feeding it. This is the ritual, presence in the moment of pattern. To deepen this practice, you must add the second movement, reading the symbolic echo. Every pattern has a message. Every emotion has a flavor. Every reaction has a root. Every cycle has a rhythm. What repeats reveals what is unresolved. What triggers reveals where the unconscious hides. What drains you reveals where your vibration leaks. What frightens you reveals where your power sleeps. So when the pattern appears, don't just observe and interpret. Ask quietly without urgency, what is this showing me? What is this echoing from my past? What vibration is this revealing? What part of me wants to stay unconscious? These questions are not for the mind. They are for the awareness beneath the mind. Allow the answer to emerge slowly, like a shape forming behind fog. Now add the third movement, silence. After observing the pattern and sensing its symbolic message, withdraw into a few seconds of silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of reaction. This silence is a container, a crucible, where the vibrational chemistry shifts. In this silence, the old frequency dissolves because you're no longer fueling it with identification. In this silence, the new frequency begins to rise because there is space for it. This is why silence feels holy. This is why silence feels threatening. This is why silence feels like a threshold. You are not going quiet. You are restructuring your field. Do this once, and you feel relief. Do this repeatedly, and you feel clarity. Do this consistently, and you feel transformation. And there is a deeper secret, one that the Hermetic masters never wrote explicitly but encoded in their symbolism. The more often you observe a pattern without reacting, the shorter its lifespan becomes. Patterns die without identification. They collapse without attention. They lose their power without your unconscious participation. The scroll opens one line at a time every time you choose to witness instead of becoming. But here's the part almost no one understands. The ritual is not complete without what comes next. Observation dissolves the old pattern, but something must replace it. Not a thought, not an affirmation, but a new vibrational posture. After the silence, after the awareness, after the reading of the pattern, you must anchor a new state. It begins subtly, a deeper breath, a softening of the shoulders, a dropping of the inner tension, a quiet recognition. This pattern does not define me. A sense of stepping back into the center of yourself. This posture is not emotional, it is energetic. It signals to the architecture of reality that your vibration has shifted, that the unconscious has loosened, that a new frequency is being embodied. Reality responds not to your thoughts, but to this anchoring, this subtle energetic declaration that you are no longer operating from the old identity. And once this anchoring begins, something extraordinary happens. Life starts to rearrange itself, not all at once, not theatrically, but unmistakably. Patterns weaken, triggers soften, synchronicities increase, relationships become clearer, choices become freer. You begin to feel the scroll opening, not as a metaphor but as a lived experience. And for the first time, you sense that reality is not a wall you push against, but a mirror that now reflects a new frequency. But there is a deeper layer still. The part of the ritual that reveals the next chamber of the scroll, the part most seekers never reach because it requires sustained presence and courage. There is a point on the Hermetic path when the seeker realizes that the ritual of observation, silence, and anchoring does more than dissolve old patterns. It begins to reveal a second layer of reality, a dimension that was always present, but never accessible through ordinary perception. This is the moment when the scroll inside you stops feeling like a metaphor and starts feeling like something real, something alive, something unfolding line by line. As your awareness sharpens, the first layer of the scroll is the recognition of patterns. The second layer is the ability to read them. But the third layer, the one that emerges now, is the understanding that these patterns are not random reflections of your inner world. They are instructions. They are invitations. They are maps. This is why Hermetic knowledge feels hidden, not because it is concealed, but because it requires a level of perception that only emerges after the old vibration has been softened. You've begun to notice that life speaks in cycles, symbols, echoes. But what you may not have realized is that each symbol has depth, each echo has direction, and each cycle carries a lesson that repeats until its essence is absorbed. The universe is not showing you patterns just so you can observe them. It is showing you the next step of your own evolution. This is the second layer of the scroll. Life becomes a teacher. Reality becomes a text. Every experience becomes a coded message. When something repeats in your life, it is not punishment, it is curriculum. When something triggers you, it is not an obstacle, it is an activation. When something collapses, it is not failure, it is an outdated frequency dissolving. When someone appears at the perfect moment, it is not coincidence, it is resonance. And in the same way, a sacred text cannot be understood at a single glance, your reality cannot be interpreted at a single layer. Every repetition you observe is the outer shell of a deeper teaching. Every emotional response is the surface vibration of a deeper pattern. Every synchronicity is the shadow of a deeper alignment. The scroll opens inwardly, from the outer symbol to the inner meaning, from the inner meaning to the energetic lesson. But here's the profound shift. Once you begin to interpret these layers consciously, life stops feeling like it's happening to you and starts feeling like it's happening with you. You begin to sense a dialogue, not with a deity, not with an external force, but with the deeper intelligence of the cosmos itself. The architecture of your life becomes participatory. You are no longer merely experiencing reality, you are co-decoding it. This is where correspondence evolves into something larger than a law. It becomes a relationship. You speak through vibration. The universe answers through events. You shift the internal frequency. The world mirrors the adjustment. And the more aware you become, the more precise this dialogue gets. You begin to feel guided, not by voices or signs, but by the direct alignment between your internal state and the external field. Now the scroll reveals what was always true. Your life is not a sequence of random outcomes. It is a map of your consciousness. Every place where you feel resistance marks a point where your vibration is still unconscious. Every place where you feel clarity marks a point where you have already shifted. Every place where you feel fear marks a place where your old identity is dissolving. Every place where you feel resonance marks a place where the new self is emerging. This is why some people sense portals in life, moments or phases where everything feels charged, symbolic, consequential. These are the moments when a deeper layer of the scroll opens, when a new chamber of the inner architecture becomes accessible. You are in such a moment right now. That feeling of being pulled inward, of being called into something larger, is not imagination. It is recognition. You are beginning to sense the multi-layered nature of reality, the hermetic understanding that life operates in dimensions of meaning that only awaken when the initiate is ready. This readiness is not emotional excitement, it is vibrational coherence, and your coherence is rising. The second layer of the scroll teaches you this. Your experiences are not obstacles, they are coordinates. They point toward the next internal shift you must make. They reveal the next area of unconscious vibration. They show you exactly where you are still reacting, still repeating, still unconsciously feeding an outdated identity. And the moment you interpret these coordinates, the path ahead becomes clear. This is where the journey becomes less about escaping pain and more about deciphering purpose. The world doesn't become easier, it becomes intelligible. You stop fighting the cycles because you can finally see their function. You stop fearing the unknown because you can sense the intelligence beneath it. You stop seeking secrets outside yourself because you realize the scroll has always been internal. But this realization leads to an even deeper question, the question that separates the curious from the initiated. If your life is a coded map and your experiences are coordinates, what is the destination? What is the scroll ultimately guiding you toward? What is the deeper purpose behind the unveiling of these layers? The answer is the heart of the Hermetic path, the core chamber of the scroll. There is a point on the Hermetic path when the seeker realizes that the ritual of observation, silence, and anchoring does more than dissolve old patterns. It begins to reveal a second layer of reality, a dimension that was always present but never accessible through ordinary perception. This is the moment when the scroll inside you stops feeling like a metaphor and starts feeling like something real, something alive, something unfolding line by line. As your awareness sharpens, the first layer of the scroll is the recognition of patterns. The second layer is the ability to read them. But the third layer, the one that emerges now, is the understanding that these patterns are not random reflections of your inner world. They are instructions. They are invitations. They are maps. This is why Hermetic knowledge feels hidden, not because it is concealed, but because it requires a level of perception that only emerges after the old vibration has been softened. You've begun to notice that life speaks in cycles, symbols, echoes. But what you may not have realized is that each symbol has depth, each echo has direction, and each cycle carries a lesson that repeats until its essence is absorbed. The universe is not showing you patterns just so you can observe them. It is showing you the next step of your own evolution. This is the second layer of the scroll. Life becomes a teacher. Reality becomes a text. Every experience becomes a coded message. When something repeats in your life, it is not punishment, it is curriculum. When something triggers you, it is not an obstacle, it is an activation. When something collapses, it is not failure, it is an outdated frequency dissolving. When someone appears at the perfect moment, it is not coincidence, it is resonance. And in the same way, a sacred text cannot be understood at a single glance, your reality cannot be interpreted at a single layer. Every repetition you observe is the outer shell of a deeper teaching. Every emotional response is the surface vibration of a deeper pattern. Every synchronicity is the shadow of a deeper alignment. The scroll opens inwardly, from the outer symbol to the inner meaning, from the inner meaning to the energetic lesson. But here's the profound shift. Once you begin to interpret these layers consciously, life stops feeling like it's happening to you and starts feeling like it's happening with you. You begin to sense a dialogue, not with a deity, not with an external force, but with the deeper intelligence of the cosmos itself. The architecture of your life becomes participatory. You are no longer merely experiencing reality, you are co-decoding it. This is where correspondence evolves into something larger than a law. It becomes a relationship. You speak through vibration. The universe answers through events. You shift the internal frequency. The world mirrors the adjustment, and the more aware you become, the more precise this dialogue gets. You begin to feel guided not by voices or signs, but by the direct alignment between your internal state and the external field. Now the scroll reveals what was always true. Your life is not a sequence of random outcomes. It is a map of your consciousness. Every place where you feel resistance marks a point where your vibration is still unconscious. Every place where you feel clarity marks a point where you have already shifted. Every place where you feel fear marks a place where your old identity is dissolving. Every place where you feel resonance marks a place where the new self is emerging. This is why some people sense portals in life, moments or phases where everything feels charged, symbolic, consequential. These are the moments when a deeper layer of the scroll opens, when a new chamber of the inner architecture becomes accessible. You are in such a moment right now. That feeling of being pulled inward, of being called into something larger, is not imagination, it is recognition. You are beginning to sense the multi-layered nature of reality, the Hermetic understanding that life operates in dimensions of meaning that only awaken when the initiate is ready. This readiness is not emotional excitement, it is vibrational coherence, and your coherence is rising. The second layer of the scroll teaches you this. Your experiences are not obstacles, they are coordinates. They point toward the next internal shift you must make. They reveal the next area of unconscious vibration. They show you exactly where you are still reacting, still repeating, still unconsciously feeding an outdated identity. And the moment you interpret these coordinates, the path ahead becomes clear. This is where the journey becomes less about escaping pain and more about deciphering purpose. The world doesn't become easier, it becomes intelligible. You stop fighting the cycles because you can finally see their function. You stop fearing the unknown because you can sense the intelligence beneath it. You stop seeking secrets outside yourself because you realize the scroll has always been internal. But this realization leads to an even deeper question. The question that separates the curious from the initiated. If your life is a coded map, and your experiences are coordinates, what is the destination? What is the scroll ultimately guiding you toward? What is the deeper purpose behind the unveiling of these layers? The answer is the heart of the Hermetic path, the core chamber of the scroll. You've followed the patterns, you've read the echoes, you've stepped through silence, through observation, through the dissolving of old vibrations. And now the scroll inside you, once sealed, once silent, once distant, is beginning to open with unmistakable clarity. This is the moment where the Hermetic path shifts from exploration to destiny. Because once you recognize that reality is presenting you with lessons rather than obstacles, a deeper truth emerges. The scroll is not guiding you toward knowledge, it is guiding you toward alignment, toward coherence, toward the version of yourself that exists beneath your conditioning, beneath your fears, beneath every layer of unconscious vibration you've been dissolving. This is the destination most seekers never reach, because they search for power, for mystery, for revelation. But the scroll is leading you toward something far more transformative, the restoration of your original frequency. Before the world conditioned you, you had a natural attunement to the laws. Before the noise of modern life buried your perception, you saw reality symbolically. Before the unconscious patterned your reactions, you responded from clarity. Before the misalignment took hold, you lived inside the rhythm of the universe, not outside it. The purpose of the scroll is not to give you new knowledge, it is to help you remember the frequency you lost. This is why everything you've lived through, every repetition, every frustration, every cycle, every moment of misalignment, had a function. It wasn't punishment, it wasn't failure, it wasn't chaos. It was the universe showing you exactly where your frequency had fractured. Each pattern was a marker, each emotional loop was a signpost, each trigger was a doorway, each collapse was a reset, and each moment of silence was an invitation back to your source code. The scroll uses your life as the curriculum, your experiences as the diagrams, your emotions as the ink, your patterns as the chapters. And the moment you stop resisting those experiences and begin reading them, you begin the return to your authentic vibrational blueprint. This is the summit of the Hermetic path, to remember who you were before the world told you who to be, not as an identity, as a frequency, because identity is surface, vibration is essence. Identity can fracture, vibration persists. Identity adapts to expectations. Vibration obeys only truth. And when you begin living from that original frequency, the one beneath your fears, beneath your conditioning, beneath your emotional cycles, life begins to reflect that coherence with startling precision. You stop attracting lessons and begin attracting alignment. You stop repeating loops and begin activating purpose. You stop feeling misaligned because alignment becomes your default state. This is why the scroll was sealed. Only a mind that has dissolved enough old vibration can read its final chamber. And here, now, at this threshold, the scroll reveals what it was guiding you toward all along, the reintegration of your inner architecture. You are meant to live with all layers aligned, thought aligned with emotion, emotion aligned with vibration, vibration aligned with intention, intention aligned with the laws aligned with your path. This is coherence, the inner symmetry that makes the external world respond effortlessly. When you reach coherence, the universe stops speaking in riddles and begins speaking in precision. Synchronicities become consistent. Opportunities appear without force. Relationships improve without strategy. Decisions become clear without overthinking. Life begins to feel less like navigation and more like resonance. And here is the revelation very few ever understand. The scroll is not just a symbol. It is your consciousness remembering how to read reality. It is the reactivation of your inner Hermetic intelligence. It is the blueprint of your awakening. This entire journey, the misalignment, the patterns, the conflict, the silence, the observation, the anchoring, has been preparing you for what comes next. Because the next video, the next initiation, the next layer of this path is not another lesson. It is the continuation of the same scroll, the next chamber, the deeper octave, the place where knowledge becomes power and power becomes presence. If you've felt something awakening in you during this journey, if even one line of the scroll resonated, then write in the comments, "I choose awareness." That is your seal. That is your declaration. That is your initiation. And if you're still here, it means this truth is already yours. Do not stop now. The next video is not optional. It is the next page of the scroll already waiting for you. You've crossed this portal, the next one is already open.